I think we can start. Thank you for waiting, everyone, and good morning. I am Dang Espita Casanova, Program Manager of Cleaner Asia, and we welcome you all to the webinar Integrating Clean Air and Climate Actions in Cities, Lessons Learned on Co-Benefits in Asia. Just a few reminders. We have an open question and answer box, and participants from all over the region are invited to send in your questions or comments via chat. And please be reminded that the whole workshop is recorded. And on behalf of the project team from the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, Cleaner Asia, and ECLA East Asia, we welcome you to today's program. Before we begin, I would like to call on the Health Initiative and Household Energy Coordinator of the Climate and Clean Air Coalition, Ms. Sandra Cavalieri, to provide welcome remarks. Sandra coordinates the CCAC Secretariat's work on connecting health, climate and air pollution, and supporting countries to mitigate household air pollution. She works closely with the WHO, UN Environment, and World Bank on the Breathe Life campaign to promote health and climate benefits from reducing air pollution. Sandra joined the CCAC Secretariat in 2012 following 6 years at the Ecologic Institute in Berlin, Germany. Without further ado, we'd like to welcome Ms. Sandra Cavalieri for the opening remarks. Sandra?
Thank you so much, Dong. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Perfect. So thank you so much. Again, my name is Sandra Cavalieri, and on behalf of the Climate and Clean Air Coalition Secretariat, I would like to extend a warm welcome to everyone here today, and especially thank the panelists and the organizers. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing about your experiences in developing and testing the new air pollution training curriculum for Asian cities, and looking forward to the insights from the colleagues from ADB and UNEP, and from stories from cities in Indonesia, in Mongolia, and from Santa Rosa, Philippines. So thank you very much. So I wanted to give a little bit of background on the Climate and Clean Air Coalition. The Climate and Clean Air Coalition was established in 2012 to reduce short-lived climate pollutants. So these include black carbon, methane, HFCs, and tropospheric ozone. And these pollutants are powerful climate forcers that have global warming potentials many times that of carbon dioxide. And these pollutants also significantly impact air quality, food, water, and economic security for much of the world. And both directly through their negative impacts on public health, on agriculture and ecosystems, but also indirectly on their impact to climate. So in the Climate and Clean Air Coalition, we often say that reducing short-lived climate pollutants is fast action that will yield quick results and multiple benefits, because these pollutants are present in the atmosphere for a much shorter period of time than carbon dioxide. And that means they can also be removed much more quickly. So black carbon is present in the atmosphere for only a few weeks, while methane is in the atmosphere for about 12 years. But this is compared to carbon dioxide, which is living in the atmosphere for hundreds of years. So the speed at which short-lived climate pollutants can be removed from the atmosphere really presents an opportunity for quick, coordinated action to address both global warming and also achieve immediate benefits for health and for development. So as many, if not all of you know, we are faced with an incredible challenge. 9 out of 10 people worldwide do not breathe clean air. Globally, air pollution is the second leading cause of non-communicable diseases, and it's the leading cause of pneumonia for children under the age of 5. 7 million people die prematurely every year due to air pollution. So in 2016, the WHO, the CCAC, and UNEP launched the Breathe Life campaign. And at the time, our main objective was really to raise awareness about the health impacts from air pollution. Now, in 2021, our mission is really to go far beyond that, to show that air pollution is impacting both our health and the climate, along with all of the Sustainable Development Goals. Air pollution and climate change are two sides of the same coin. Both are largely caused by the same sources and have similar solutions. So when we look at what we need to achieve by 2030, we can see that tackling them together is the only way forward. So with that, I would like to again thank everyone, and I'm really looking forward to the presentations and to the discussion. So thank you very much, Dong and all of the colleagues who have put this together. So
Thank you, Sandra, and thank you for giving your time, your evening to us. And without further ado, I'd like us to move into a session wherein we will be introduced to the project and the training curriculum that we have developed under the project. And to talk a bit more about co-benefits, I would like to welcome Dr. Eric Zisman of the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies. Eric is a senior policy researcher and area leader at IGES in Japan, and for the past 2 decades, he has conducted research on environmental issues in Asia, including working with several research and academic institutions. He has published books and articles on various topics such as air pollution regulation, environmental law, multi-level governance, low carbon development, and sustainable development goals. Dr. Zisman also holds a bachelor's degree in Mandarin Chinese from Rutgers University, a dual master's degree in public policy and Asian studies from the University of Texas at Austin, and a PhD in political science from the University of California in Los Angeles. So without much further ado, Eric, you can take the floor, please.
Thank you so much, Don. Really appreciate the introduction, and now I'd like to share my screen. Okay, so I'm going to briefly be talking about this project that we worked on, which focused on integrating climate change and air pollution policies in cities in Asia, and some of the lessons we learned on co-benefits. My presentation will be broken up into 3 different sections: city needs assessment, training curriculum, and next steps. And I want to underline that this project was supported by the Climate Change and Clean Air Coalition. We also received kind support from the Ministry of Environment in Japan, as well as the Seoul Metropolitan Government, and in-kind support from many other colleagues. I'm going to break up my presentation into these 3 sections, and so let me begin first with this needs assessment. So the first thing that we did with this project is we tried to understand what would be some of the needs for cities to work on this idea of co-benefits. And we tried to frame it in terms of integrating air pollution and climate change planning. And what we found by talking and surveying 60 different cities in Asia is that there's a strong interest in this topic. Over 95% of the cities that were surveyed said that they have an interest in this, whereas only, I think, 1 or 2 of the surveyed cities were unsure. At the same time, while we noticed that there's strong interest, the actual experience with integrating planning was a little bit more limited. So about 60% of the cities had some experience in this area, and I would say 40% or so did not have so much experience. And so we tried to dig down a little bit deeper to understand what might be some of these needs. And if you'd like to see the whole needs assessment, we could share that with you later. But one of the things I'd like to flag is when we looked at to what extent cities were actually assessing the air pollution and climate change impacts of their policies, here it was much more limited. So from this chart right here, what we can see is out of the cities that responded to the question about actually assessing co-benefits, only 8 of the 60 cities actually are assessing co-benefits on a regular basis, whereas the vast majority are not doing so. So we wanted to try to understand then what could we do to help meet some of these needs? How can we push forward the idea of co-benefits in cities, especially but not only in Asia? And what we understood from the survey is that there's sort of 3 basic need areas. And I'm going to talk briefly about each of these. The first is these core concepts. So what is a co-benefit? What is a short-lived climate pollutant? Why are they important for cities? Second are decision-making tools. And I'll briefly discuss some of the decision-making tools that were used through this project and will be continued to be used with some of the cities that are cooperating with IGES, eCLAE, and Clean Air Asia. And the last set of issues were what I'll call integrated planning. Here's some experiences on how different agencies within government at different levels of decision-making can cooperate with each other. And this is very important, of course, if you're going to work on air pollution and climate change simultaneously. So we published this training curriculum, and you can download it now several places. One is the IGES website. The link is right here. And I'll go briefly through some of the key themes that we cover in this training curriculum. So as I mentioned, the core concepts, we highlight that co-benefits are all of the benefits that come from actions that mitigate climate change and achieve other development priorities. Now, as Sandra mentioned, one of the easiest and most direct ways to do this is to target reductions in short-lived climate pollutants, especially things like black carbon and methane, which are very, very prominent within cities. At the same time, there's also opportunities to achieve co-benefits by mitigating longer-lived greenhouse gases, while at the same time also reducing other air pollutants. So there are multiple entry points for achieving co-benefits. And in some cases, cities might want to pursue more than one of these entry points. The second thing that we highlighted in talking about co-benefits is that this is definitely an opportunity for cities. Cities tend to be one of the places where we see the most innovative responses to environmental and social problems. But what I would suggest to you is still for many, many cities out there, and I would go above and beyond, the 60 cities that we surveyed, this is still a tough call. Working on climate change, for especially many politicians, and I want to distinguish between politicians and policymakers. For many politicians is still a tough sell because they perceive climate change as largely a global problem with long-term impacts that are relatively uncertain. And what I would suggest to you is that part of the appeal of co-benefits is it helps to reframe our climate change problem in a way that underlines the local, the near term, and the relatively certain benefits for health, for economies, and many of these things, of course, work through air quality. So co-benefits will help us transform what I would suggest is good policy into good politics. And this is really important, I think, especially for mayors and other officials that want to make sure that they stay in office. So one thing we need to do is understand core concepts. The second thing is I would suggest are decision-making tools. We talk a lot these days about strengthening the interface between science and policy. And I think what we've seen, especially since the CCAC was formed, and in part due to some of the good work of the Breathe Life campaign, we've seen growing use of decision-making tools within cities. And in the curriculum, we profile some of the experiences using tools at the cross-sectoral level. So there's things like the LEAP IBC tool, which is used primarily at national level, but has been used at the city level. And I think there's room for more application there. There's also the gains tool from YASA. In terms of more sectoral or city level applications, there's what's called the TEAM tool. And this is a tool that was developed by Clean Air Asia and is currently being used in collaboration with one of the cities that cooperated on this project, Santa Rosa, that can help look at some of the impacts on different types of air pollutants, as well as CO2 from different transportation measures or interventions. And then last but not least, there are technology-specific tools. So this includes a tool that IGES has developed with Kyushu University to help look at the multiple impacts of heat-only boilers in Mongolia. And we're going to continue to use this tool with policymakers and decision makers in Mongolia at the national and local level. And this has helped to identify ways that we can improve not only health, but also energy efficiency for a particular set of technologies. So decision-making tools are another important part of the puzzle. The last part of the puzzle is, I would suggest, is the integrated planning. And what we do in the curriculum is we profile several different cities or subnational governments that have had some success in bringing together different agencies to work on climate change and air pollution, many times working through different entry points. So for instance, we profile some of the good work that's been done in Seoul, Korea, which most recently has looked at opportunities for what we might call grassroots innovation, especially from renewable energy. We look at some of the good work that's been done in Tokyo on clean diesel and making sure that the emissions of diesel from the city fell approximately 20 years ago, but then that work also spread from not only Tokyo, but to other parts of the country, and then influenced national policy. And then we also look at other cases outside of the region. So this includes the state level in California. And one of the interesting things in California is it really exemplifies or illustrates what we might call a multi-level approach, where the state government has been quite ambitious, engaging many different stakeholders and working across many different agencies, but also has begun to work with cities. So if you go to places like Los Angeles right now, approximately 15 years ago or so, you wouldn't see a subway in Los Angeles, or at least I shouldn't say a functional subway in Los Angeles. But now the public transportation system in Los Angeles has been revamped. And this is in part a response to climate change, as well as a recognition of some of the other benefits in terms of health and saving time on commuting. So this leads me to the next steps. I'm really happy that we have such a nice audience with us today. And I would suggest to you this is very important that we talk about these issues. But one of my concerns in doing this work is sometimes that we're preaching a little bit to the choir. Many of the people on this call are already firmly believing that co-benefits is a way forward. But I think in order to convince more cities to work on these issues, it's important to think about how we can institutionalize some of this work moving forward. And we think that in Asia, especially in the Philippines, where a lot of the cities that responded to this needs assessment are located, there might be potential for institutionalizing some of this work and spreading some of the lessons learned from this curriculum, as well as some of the cities that we've worked with, including Chengdu, Ulaanbaatar, and Santa Rosa. So thank you very much. I'll end there.
Thank you very much, Eric. And now to move to the meat of our webinar, I would like to introduce our esteemed panel of discussants for this morning. First off, we have Engineer Maria Amor Salandanan, who is the Department Head of the City Environment and Natural Resources Office of Santa Rosa, City Environment and Natural Resources Office. She's a licensed chemical engineer and urban environmental planner. with over 20 years of experience in the government service, 16 years of which she dedicated with the city government of Santa Rosa. Her current role focuses on the formulation and development, implementation, management, and monitoring and evaluation of environmental programs and pollution abatement and control. And she continues to collaborate with various sectors, stakeholders, institutions, and organizations to keep the city updated with innovative and effective management strategies and technologies to come up with the best appropriate solutions for the city. Second, we have Mr. Alvis Rustam, who is the Executive Director of the Association of Indonesia Municipalities, or Apexi. His background is on international development and has been an experienced senior advisor and consultant for several local leaders alliances and ministries, public-private partnership forums, and international development agencies. His career spans a wide range of regulatory advocacy and strategic communications and highly regarded achievements in government, commercial, and not-for-profit sectors. Next is Dr. Dambin George, is the founder and managing director of the Climate Change Development Academy in Mongolia, a nonprofit and independent research and consultancy organization. Dr. Dambin's background is on meteorology and computer programming, and his experience in the field of environmental issues, ecosystem modeling, and climate change. He worked for Mongolia's Ministry of Environment and Tourism and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in different senior positions. And he's also a former special envoy on climate change of Mongolia from 2009 to 2015 and has involved in numerous intergovernmental activities related to climate change issues. Next is Ms. Karma Yangzom, a principal environmental specialist in the Sustainable Development and Climate Change Department of the Asian Development Bank. Karma is responsible for environmental safeguards review of projects under the transport, agriculture, and private sector for selected operational departments at ADB. She works under the Environmental Thematic Group, where she is the focal point for air quality management and green infrastructure. Now, she is currently managing a TA on strengthening knowledge and actions for air quality improvement, focused on building the capacity of 7 cities from across the region in developing clean air action plans and financing plans. And last but not the least is Ms. Kay Patdu, an Associate Program Officer at the UN Environment Program Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific. Kay coordinates the Asia-Pacific Clean Air Partnership, a regional partnership working to achieve measurable reductions in air pollution emissions in Asia. And she has over 10 years of experience working on air quality issues in the region. Prior to joining UNEP, Kay worked with Cleaner Asia, developing air quality action plans and assessing the status of air pollution in the region. And with this, I would like to hand over the session to Merlin Lau, Senior Program Manager at ECLAE East Asia, to moderate the discussion. Merlin?
Thank you. Thank you. Can people hear me well? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. On behalf of our project consortium, I will be moderating this section discussion. So we expect it would take about half hour, maybe to 40 minutes. We would expect our panelists to go through sort of a rapid fire sharing from some of the key questions that we'll be asking. And then we will take questions from the audience, either through live or actually some audience have already responded when they register on some questions that they are interested. So our panelists, as Dan introduced, is actually a 2-level composition. We have interesting city government officials, and we also have a representative from international organization. So without further ado, I would actually want to first take the floor to Engineer Amor, because Engineer Amor has worked a lot in 20 years of experience in Santa Rosa, and I know is a close partner to also Clean Air Asia. So Engineer Amor, So we are interested to know your experience in integrating air pollution and climate action in the development of your city. And we are also interested to see if you see any areas that your city that may need further support in terms of like improving further implementation and achieving co-benefits. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Merlin and Dang. Let me first take this opportunity to thank the organizers of this workshop, especially to Clean Air Asia, to IGES, and of course to ICLEI Southeast Asia. Thank you very much for this opportunity. So let me share with you the experience of the city of Santa Rosa in integrating air pollution and climate action in our development projects and programs and even in our sectoral plans. Air pollution and climate change effects are two different scenarios, especially true for urban areas and cities in developing countries like the city of Santa Rosa. While these two may have certain indefinite impacts as specific environmental issues, on one hand, both certainly
Sorry, can people mute? Thank you.
both certainly have an effect relative to each other on the other hand. For instance, release or emissions of pollutants into the air could result in changes to the climate. This therefore established the close linkage of two of the planet's main environmental problems. The city of Santa Rosa, with its character as a highly urbanized and industrialized city south of the country's capital of Manila, was reported as contributing to 24% of the country's gross domestic product, and proportionately, the economic development and progress from the operations of the multinational manufacturing corporations like semiconductor and electronics and car manufacturing transcends to more than 50% of the city's greenhouse gas emissions. Along this line, the transport and energy sector have contributed significantly to the carbon dioxide concentration to the present air quality in the city, as reported in the emissions inventory conducted in cooperation with the Philippines National Center for Transportation Studies of the University of the Philippines and of course with Clean Air Asia. The Philippines have acted accordingly to address these two environmental phenomena with the enactment of two laws. First, the Republic Act 8749 or the Clean Air Act of 1999 and the Climate Change Act of 2000, the Republic Act number 9729. These two laws have significantly influenced how environmental considerations are mainstreamed into development programs. The national government accordingly have released certain guidelines and policies in order to serve as framework for cities in the development of their comprehensive land use and development plans. Released guidelines such as the supplemental guidelines in mainstreaming CCA and DRR into the CLUP and the Department of Budget's climate change expenditure tagging, which mandates local government units to make their CLUPs CCA and DRR sensitive and incorporating programs into the annual investment plan and the local budget, the activities relative to climate change mitigation and adaptation with corresponding budgetary cost figures respectively. These enactments and policy issuances have somehow shaped and influenced the current trend in developing local government programs and projects. At the local or city level, the city of Santa Rosa have abided by these guidelines in most of its development programs. The city of Santa Rosa had been in partnership with Clean Air Asia since 2016, initially for the project City Clean Air Certification Program, which gave the city its City Clean Air Award in 2018 during the BAQ conference in Malaysia. Fresh from the completion of the city's emissions inventory in 2020, Clean Air Asia supported the drafting of the city's Clean Air Action Plan in January of 2021. which incorporate and mainstream in its list of priority actions the principles of co-benefits in addressing simultaneously air pollution and climate change effects. Relative to this cooperation with Clean Air Asia, several training workshops have been conducted virtually even during this time of the pandemic crisis. Workshop on SLCP, short-lived climate pollutants such as the black carbon, monitoring and integration into the development plans and initiatives were highlighted as a result. In relation to this cooperation, the City of Santa Rosa have developed its core team for ease in interagency, inter-office coordination, which contribute to the program's success. In the process of this coordination, data and information, as well as the LGU plans, are harmonized and synchronized. And until this moment, the practice had been adopted as the City of Santa Rosa work towards its ultimate goal of sustainable and green city. So with these programs on hand, the City of Santa Rosa still needs further support on several items. In order to expedite implementation and achieve co-benefits in the process, the City of Santa Rosa would need to harness the knowledge gained from scientific data and information and use this available data to optimize planning process and improve results through better decisions and prioritization. Horizontal integration indeed between and among offices and agencies is also one key point to make programs successful in achieving these co-benefits. So that's for the City of Santa Rosa, and good morning to everyone.
Thank you, Engineer Amo. So actually, ICLEI, we work a lot in Philippines too, and we know Philippine local governments are very integrating in terms of government structure and ideas. So with this, I will turn to the next panelist, Mr. Aris Rustam. Mr. Aris, we would be asking the same question, but I think your context it would be a little bit different because you are leading an association of municipal governments in Indonesian cities, or it could be quite diverse in terms of representation. So Mr. Alvis, would you be able to address the same question that we have? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning from Indonesia. I am in Bogor now, Bogor City. Usually we are in Jakarta, but now we are in Bogor. Thanks for invitation and appreciate for your introduction by in the beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to be on this forum. And I'm Alwir Sustam from Apexi. Apexi is an Indonesian acronym for the Association of Indonesia City Government or Municipalities. Apexi members are 98 cities. In other words, all cities in Indonesia are members of Apexi, and including 34 provincial capital cities throughout Indonesia. I'm not talking about the technical thing, but I really agree with the previous speak that I believe that co-benefit we can synergize for good bureaucracy to good political common, I think. Yeah, in Apexi actually regularly discuss the type of global issues that are felt at the local level. Especially for climate change, for disaster, and some of other, including the health situation now, pandemic, and economic situation. But it means that recently those global problems really affected to the local or the city miseries. And in several cities, those our association members several interventions in dealing with city clean air and city pollution. So they are spread from effort related to other climate change programs. For these environmental issues and sustainability, but sometimes not really integrated plan in budgeting and programming. In this occasion, I invite you to visit our website, apexi.id, to see some of capacity building strategies.
Mr. Elvis, I think your bandwidth is not very good. Maybe you can turn off the camera for now. You are breaking a little bit. Yeah, let me also turn it off.
How about now? Is it okay now?
Yes,
Oh,
this
I
is
think it's better. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, it's working.
Okay, thanks. Very Semarang, Bogor, Gorontalo, Surabaya, all of our cities struggling and stated in their medium-term development plan in the provincial level, and I noted that at least there are major challenges ahead. I think first is the type of equipment. I think the number of monitoring point and frequency parameter for 8 member of cities throughout Indonesia. Secondly, the quality of resource data that can be used for global citizen. So I think hopefully we can push some of visitors, tourists with the like prokes. Yeah, we can see the status of pollution for each our city. And third is database here in our association. And also the last challenge is understanding of benefit and the data as well as public policies and regulation in city scale. I think in that context, Apexi is currently developing the Apexi Dashboard. Actually, we call data quota. In the future, this dashboard overcome foreman challenges in monitoring and developing public policies related to the air cleanliness and at city level. I think the last challenge, the public awareness is very, very challenging, namely the growing public awareness maybe or air quality. Every local leader and mayors in our member and development stakeholders at the city level should not only proud on the infrastructure or public facilitation and splendor of the city, but also the cleanliness of the air and continues to be promoted as requirement for modern, advanced, and civilized city. We in Apexi consider that cooperation and synergy are needed for some of intervention and advocacy for our member. Not only technical and technological support. I think Apexi is also ongoing now for continuing to push national regulation to set reward and punishment strategic public campaign against city government that often ignore sometimes that issue. And Apexi is really open in synergy. We Apex synergy this year, including that related to effort and make more perfect our dashboard. So I just imagine that our dashboard is not only show of some of important infographic and valuable info of all of 98 city members for investment, spending, city government, export, import, and level of consumption, for example, and and including superior product and services and tourism destination, yeah, in each city from our members, but also their own status, yeah, for activities for their sport and outdoor sport and visit tourists. Yeah, I believe our city can certainly provide mutual benefit, especially for people and planet. Thanks again for having me in this great forum. I think back to you, our great host for this forum. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Alves, for being accommodating. And actually, maybe you can also share your website. I think even it was breaking, we are catching some of the main content. And also one of the questions just now, I think one person asked is about whether we have such kind of network and collaborative efforts. And I think your association of network, actually similar to ICLE, can actually be the gap of those. So we are happy to address further. And I think this is a clear answer to one of the questions that was asked before. Thank you, Mr. Alves. So with this, we will move to the north, Mongolia, to Dr. Damden. Dr. Damden, you're here, right? Yes, so I personally have quite a bit of experience in Mongolia, and actually in the capital city, Ulaanbaatar, they even separate the Agency of Environment and Agency of Air Quality. So we know the country and the city is working quite a lot on air pollution issue. So my question to you, Dr. Damden, is like, from your experience, how have policymakers and researchers use co-benefit decision-making tools in order to strengthen their relevant policy at both the national level and also city level in Mongolia? And besides using these tools, maybe you can also let us know 2 to 3 additional changes that could really help the country and the capital city to integrate air pollution and climate policy together. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Indian Dagwadorch, as introduced. So firstly, I would like to thank the organizers for this online discussion on very important task for the countries in the sub-region. So this time I will participate in this panel discussion in my capacity of an independent researcher and consultant in the field of climate change and environmental policy issues. So as you asked, firstly, I would like to focus on co-benefit decision-making tools that can strengthen relevant policies at national level and the city level. So as you know, the total GHG emissions of Mongolia is negligible fraction. It's 0.1% of the global total emissions. No, but per capita GHG emissions, also per GDP emissions are relatively very high than global average. So therefore, there are great needs for reduction of GHG emission intensity in the country. Also, since the GHG emissions in air pollution have the same sources, like coal burning, the integration of efforts to mitigate GHG emissions and reduce air pollution in the cities could be very crucial for Mongolia. So Mongolia has revised its NDC in 2019. This revised NDC commits to reducing GHG emissions by 22.7% in 2030 compared to the projected emissions under the business as usual scenario for 2010. In addition, if conditional GHG mitigation measures such as carbon capture and storage issues, also waste to energy technologies are implemented, and then Mongolia could achieve 27.1% reduction of total GHG emissions by 2030. Also, in its revised NDC, Mongolia has enhanced its mitigation efforts with policies and measures to be implemented in key economic sectors and the natural resource management sectors. Achieving these GHG mitigation targets could also reduce emissions of air pollution, also short-lived climate pollutants. Almost half of the population of Mongolia live in capital city of Ulaanbaatar. Like other Mongolian cities, have air pollution concentrations much higher than WHO air quality guidelines for protection of human health. So this has prompted the government of Mongolia to identify improving air quality as in high priority development issues. So as a result of ambitious decisions and strong measures to reduce Ulaanbaatar city air pollution, air quality in winter season in Ulaanbaatar is getting better than previous years. For instance, the last 2 winters, starting 2019, air quality in Ulaanbaatar was better than previous years due to a government ban on raw coal consumption in the cities, household districts. But air pollution issues in Ulaanbaatar city and other provincial centers remain challenging. So to quantify the co-benefits of GHG mitigation and air pollution reduction measures, the methods and tools for estimating GHG emissions, also air pollutants and other short-lived climate pollutants, are an important methodological background. In addition, such analytical tools and methods are useful in integrating co-benefits and short-lived climate pollutants into national and city-level policies. In this regard, a series of co-benefits workshops for Mongolia, organized jointly with IGES, scheduled between 2020 and 21, are a very important initiative for Mongolia to access the co-benefits of climate change and air pollution reduction measures. So these measures and this series of workshops are designed to build capacities of policymakers and researchers in Mongolia to understand and estimate the co-benefits from linking air pollution and climate change policies. The motivation for these workshops was that many policymakers are seeking knowledge and tools needed to identify, quantify, also integrate co-benefits into their decisions. So in the first workshops held in 2020, so many representatives of the Mongolian government ministries and line ministries, also some research institutes, some city representatives were participating. They got a lot of information about this co-benefits of the air pollution and the GHG mitigation actions. So secondly, you asked about these additional changes that could help strengthen the integration between air pollution and climate change policies at national and city levels. Yes, of course, there are certain actions should be changed in the policy making, also in implementing such activities in air pollution and GHG mitigation. So some policymakers consider that the factoring co-benefits into the decision-making process not only help reduce air pollution and mitigate greenhouse gas emissions, but meet the broader economic and social development objectives, such as those in the Sustainable Development Goals. Also, some policy in the decision makers, knowledge of the concepts and the tools needed to identify, quantify, and integrate co-benefits into the decisions are still limited. So it means that the strengthening of integration between air pollution and the climate change policies at the national level and city level in Mongolia is very important, not only for experts in this field, also for policymakers. At current stage, there are separate policies and measures to address climate change challenges and to reduce air pollutions in the cities, in particular in Ulaanbaatar city. The main reason of this that climate change policies are usually focused and considered the country level climate change solution issues. No, but air pollution policies and measures usually focus on the city level measures. No, but anyway, there will be great need for accessing co-benefits and integrating policies and measures to address climate change problems and challenges, also to reduce air pollution in the cities of Ulaanbaatar. So some key findings from the co-benefit assessments and analysis in Mongolia show that by achieving climate change mitigation goals, we will have also succeed in having co-benefits in different areas, including air quality issues in Mongolia. Thank you. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Duncan. Actually, we take two important messages that you mentioned. I think one is how the co-benefits can further integrate into economic and a wider SDG perspective. And still, from your perspective, I think the messaging will still need to be further mainstream to the policymakers. And this is a lot of work, both the NGOs and also government and international government perspective, they also need to take care of. Thank you again, Dr. Camden. So now we would switch the floor from city perspective and government perspective to international organization. So we will first turn the floor to Ms. Kammer. So Ms. Kammer, are you around here? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So as we know from the introduction, you have been also carrying now a TA on strengthening knowledge and actions, especially for air quality improvement, which is a cross-country action. So from ADB perspective and your experience, how would ADB like provide mechanisms or initiative at the regional level that could support cities in integrating air quality and climate action planning together? Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. And good morning to everybody. And I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to speak in this this event on this very important topic. Yes, Merlin, with regard to the TA that I'm working on, before I speak about the TA, if I can talk about the overall strategy of ADB at a corporate level. So we have the strategy 2030. This is the overarching strategy document, which will guide the operations of ADB for the next decade, for the next 10 years, from this year until 2030. And under this document, we have a couple of operational priorities. We have 7 operational priorities, and which is focused on different sectors and thematic areas, such as gender, agriculture sector. So we have various areas, and operational priority number 3 is on tackling climate change and enhancing environment sustainability. So this is lumped together into one operational priority. So at the strategic or at the corporate level, we fully recognize that climate change and environment is a very closely linked issue. And of course, in this particular case, we are talking about air pollution and climate mitigation. So we acknowledge that at the corporate level. We also have the operational priority number 4 on making cities more livable. And under this operational priority, the goal is to support development in cities which are low carbon, environment friendly, and basically enhancing the livability of the cities. And this also looks into the linkages between climate mitigation, climate adaptation, as well as environment sustainability. So I would just like to say that at the corporate level, we have this overarching frame. At the TA level, so this particular TA, which I am managing at the moment, it's called Strengthening Knowledge and Actions for Improving Air Quality. And in this TA, the main goal is to develop city-level clean air action plans in 7 cities in 5 countries, in Bangladesh, the Philippines, Pakistan, Mongolia, and Vietnam. And so in this TA, we are currently at the stage of carrying out a series of studies to do like a stock taking exercise and to understand the kind of issues that exist in each city with regard to air pollution and its impact on health, looking at the policy framework, looking at the different institutions and the linkages between the Environment Department, the Climate Change Department, and the goal is then to eventually come up with a clean air action plan, which will try to fill in the gaps in terms of policies or in terms of improving the technology, targeting at the most polluting sectors. And for example, brick kiln, this is a very common feature in many of the cities, particularly in South Asia. So trying to introduce cleaner technology to reduce emissions from brick kilns. And by way of developing the clean air action plans, we will also be looking into integrated the climate mitigation benefits. So what's going to be the benefit in terms of greenhouse gas emissions reduction? And one of the main objectives of doing this is in order to be able to tap resources, because eventually the goal is then to have these the clean air action plans implemented. And in order to implement that, then cities will need funds. So, and in terms of resource availability, climate change is a more attractive subject, and there are a lot of funds for climate change. So though it's very closely linked with air quality, unfortunately, I think climate change receives much more attention. Fortunately or unfortunately, it's difficult to tell because both are important. So the idea is that we will try to tap on climate change resources in order to implement the clean air action plans. Therefore, we will be looking into ensuring that there are all the required, climate change criteria in the city level clean air action plans. So this is just one TA that we are working on. And then if I can mention also, so under the same TA, we are looking to initiate a new program. It's called the Asia Clean Blue Sky program. And this is the intention of this program is mainly to scale up ADB's support and investments in improving air quality in Asia, and to really enhance by way of improving the investment, also enhancing the capacity of our developing member countries at the city level, at the national level, and trying to achieve various goals at the same time. So this approach of co-benefits, it fits in very perfectly with this program. And the tools which was discussed by the earlier panelists, and I think Eric had also mentioned it in his presentation, the LEAP, the GAINS, the team tools, and actually I'm quite excited to learn about this curriculum that has been developed, because this is exactly the sort of thing that we need to for building the capacity of our city authorities or the National Ministry of Environment officials. This is the kind of training material that is required to raise their awareness. And I think this is something which was also raised by the speaker from Santa Rosa and also from Indonesia. So that's where we need the actual evidence and the data which show that by implementing certain activities, you are able to achieve improved air quality, improved health, as well as reduced greenhouse gas emissions. So trying to document the multiple benefits. So I am actually looking forward to partnering further with Clean Air Asia and IGES as we move forward with the Asia Clean Blue Sky program. And also with our speaker from Indonesia. I think it's great that you are in this Apex organization, which is association of all the cities in Indonesia. And at the moment, ADB is not doing much for addressing air pollution, not supporting much in Indonesia. So this is one country that we are looking to find ways to cooperate and work together. So I will be in touch with you separately, Mr. Alvis Rustam. So I think that is all from my end, Merlin. I hope I have answered your question.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Kama. So I think definitely, I mean, when you mentioned the last about the new Clean Blue Sky program, it would be really interesting for the cities. And we definitely would catch up further and also bring in the city's perspective in order to support the program together.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
ICLEI as well. Yes, we look forward to having more partners.
Yeah, as a whole, yes. So I would like to turn it to our last speaker, Ms. Kay. Ms. Kay is working in the UN Environment Office in Bangkok. And we know Kay has been managing the APCAP, Asia Pacific Clean Air Partnership Program. And it will be the same question. We want to understand from the UN environment perspective, like what are the available mechanisms and initiatives at the regional level that could support our cities in, again, our topic today, integrating air quality and climate action planning. Thank you. The floor is yours, Kay.
Thank you, Merlin, and good morning, colleagues. On behalf of UNEP, we wish to express our appreciation to CCAC, Clean Air Asia, ICLEI, and IGES for inviting us to speak at this very important webinar. Of course, we know that local action is critical for us to deliver on the sustainability agenda. Unfortunately, unplanned and unmanaged urbanization, together with the rising demand for resources, energy, motorization, has contributed to what we call from UNEP the triple planetary crisis of pollution, climate change, and biodiversity loss. Even during this time of the pandemic, we know that the urgency to act on air pollution continues to be there, especially now with increasing evidence that shows that air pollution may be making people more susceptible to the health outcomes related to COVID-19. We also know that air pollution and climate change are inherently linked, with many of the air pollutants affecting climate and also sharing common sources with greenhouse gases, including transport, waste, energy, and residential sources. In 2018, UNEP worked with many partners that are here to identify 25 policy and technology clean air measures that, based on our analysis, would be able to provide numerous benefits for public health, agriculture, and climate. We've also noted that these will be very important as countries and cities recover from the pandemic, since these measures can deliver immediate economic goals, including job creation, improve public health, increasing food security, and overall contributing to achieving our climate goals and the sustainable development goals. And we're very happy to see more countries and cities that are now recognizing the potential to amplify benefits from multiple areas using an integrated planning approach and implementation approach, and prioritizing what kind of actions these would be that would bring us multiple benefits. So I think from our experience, I would like to highlight 4 opportunities that could support this integrated approach of looking at both climate and air quality. So the first one, I think, is related to COVID-19 and how we can build back better. So we've seen in the early months of 2020, the implementation of restrictions to actually curb the spread of COVID-19 has also resulted in short-term reduction in some air pollutants. And some cities have even noted, seeing blue skies for the first time ever. So that is, I think, one positive thing during this very difficult time. Cities can turn this crisis into an opportunity by building back better, investing in sustainability as part of their recovery plans. And we're now currently, together with IGES and a few other partners, we're working to assess some of these linkages between air quality and COVID-19 related impact in a number of cities, including Jakarta in Indonesia, Colombo in Sri Lanka, and Kawasaki City in Japan, and how it's possible to sustain these short-term air quality improvements for a longer term period. And some of the initial results, we've already seen that the policies look at both air quality and climate together. The results from our work will be shared at our upcoming Asia Pacific Clean Air Partnership Joint Forum in September. The second opportunity that we have identified is related to carbon neutrality. So there have been strong recent pledges for a healthy, resilient, zero carbon recovery ahead of the COP through the Race to Zero campaign. And we know that these would also bring significant benefits to air quality. In the region, I think the Republic of Korea is one of the countries that have committed to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. And we have partnered with the Republic of Korea's capital metropolitan region, which includes Seoul, Incheon, and Gyeonggi province, to assess the efforts to address air pollution, to improve further policy action, and to also identify and share some of these good practices to inspire other cities to beat air pollution and also contribute to climate action. The third opportunity I would like to highlight is using health as an entry point, because we know that depending on different stakeholders that we engage with, the entry point for action is different. Here, together with our partners, the World Health Organization, UNEP is a co-secretariat of the Asia Pacific Regional Forum on Health and Environment, which is actually chaired by the government of Indonesia. This is a very important forum which brings environment and health ministries together to address cross-sectoral issues, including air quality, climate, and health. And we know that addressing integrated approaches will need to bring people that are working from, even within the same ministry, from different departments together. UNEP will be implementing a new UN Development Account supported project specific for ASEAN on environment and health data to achieve the sustainable development goals. And as part of this work, we'll be incorporating an aspect of economic valuation of specific policies that contribute to both air quality and climate, and looking at cost of inaction versus the cost of action. One additional element in that work is also to identify nature-based solutions that could be implemented at an urban scale that will improve air quality and also contribute to our climate goals. And then finally, strengthen cooperation on clean air. We all know that air pollution is a shared responsibility. And of course, by its nature, air pollution transcends all of these boundaries that we attach to it. The UN General Assembly has designated the 7th of September as the International Day of Clean Air for Blue Skies, which is this day in a year that we are called together to facilitate international cooperation on clean air. So we invite colleagues that are here, partners, to join us in commemorating this day, which will be coming up in 3 months. So those are the 4 opportunities that we have identified, I think from UNEP and through the Asia Pacific Clean Air Partnership. We look forward to having continuous discussions with partners, and we're also exploring opportunities with CCAC, Clean Air Asia, ICLE, and IGES to be able to deliver the training materials that are being launched today during our event on air quality in September. So looking forward to the discussions, and thank you very much for inviting us today.
Thank you, Kay. I think you have done a really good co-benefit sharing, including from health and also to nature-based approach, carbon neutrality. So it's a really wide perspective from the UN environment. And thank you again for that. I know we are overrunning, but we would take maybe 2 to 3 questions. First, actually, I would want to point one question first, because it's related to all the participants here. I think one participant raised that during the registration, I think it's open to the panelists, but I think maybe Dr. Dandin and Eric could answer this question. So the question is, how can we help policymakers to really understand that measuring and quantifying the impacts of cleaner air is one of the best way to make the case for climate action from a cost-benefit analysis perspective, especially just now, Dr. Dandon mentioned the case of economic growth, I mean, for the cities. And I think Eric also have some of the experience. So would either of you want to answer this question?
Yeah, maybe I'll go first, Merlin, real quickly, and then maybe Dr. Damdin can come in. I mean, I think that there's a few things that are happening that are really important. First is that many of the decision-making tools that are used to be only used by researchers or technical staff are becoming increasingly user-friendly. And I think putting people in a position to use these tools themselves can really help to understand what the opportunities and also some of the constraints might be. So when we've done trainings in the past, we try to bring in a tool and have the decision makers or policymakers use the tool to the best of their ability. So this is one point. I note, for instance, Mr. Itapol is on this call, and he's now working with colleagues from SEI using this LEAP IBC tool. And I think this is just one very clear example of empowering people to use the decision-making tools, I think is very important. The second piece, and I think, you know, a while back, Sandra Cavalieri and I worked on some text on this, but I think the other piece of this is the communications aspect. One of the things that California has done a very good job at in promoting their Global Warming Solutions Act is, I mean, I think they highlight the climate impacts because these, of course, are important, but they communicate these impacts in a way that make them very relevant to individuals. And I think there's a sort of cycle here where if you can translate these ideas in a way that people can bring home with them, that's the type of thing that also motivates, once again, I'll emphasize this idea of politicians to move on these issues. So the communications and translation of these ideas into workable language for individuals, I think is really important. And I'll just make one very small last point, and I think this is really good work that you know, Karma is planning on doing, is that I agree with her totally that the climate agenda, in terms of finance especially, is getting a lot of attention. So I think another piece of this is to try to demonstrate the way that climate finance, broadly conceived climate finance, can come in and help achieve some of these air quality and health goals. In some ways, that sort of completes the circle. Well, those are some observations from my point of view. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Dr. Dandon, would you want to supplement on this?
Not so much to add. I think so. Eric already pointed out very important issues. No, but I just say that usually in our workshops, in our trainings, usually participate some senior level or some expert level participants from the governments in the city governments. Also, this very high level or decision makers, it's a little bit difficult to participate in our trainings and discussions. No, but in this case, I think it's better to document the results of the estimations, also to disseminate. Also, we can develop some recommendations for the policymakers to include key points of our integration, our co-benefits in our policy or city level policy documents. This shortly from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope participants can bear with me. I will take a last question here. So maybe I think our international organization partners, ADB and UN Environment, can answer this. So to what extent is the co-benefit approach relevant to cities the original question is like the cities in developed countries, but actually I want to elaborate further. For some cities where the air pollution is not a priority, how would the co-benefit approach relate to them in their work? Maybe ADB and UNEP can share some of the perspective to that for cities with less air pollution, how co-benefit will be related to them.
Maybe I can go first. So I think currently climate change and air pollution, they are mostly addressed separately. But I think even in cities where there may not be air pollution problems, but are addressing climate change and working on reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And because of the fact that a lot of the sources of greenhouse gases and air pollution is the same in many cases. So I think there will be like an organic or natural way of addressing air pollution by way of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So I think this is one aspect. And I think, however, when it comes to planning actions, there's always the benefit to consciously look at both climate change and air pollution together, to have it, like screened through the lens of both climate change and air pollution. And that way, then we will not have any sort of issues falling through the cracks, so that we capture everything together. So I think going forward, as much as possible, we need to advocate this idea, particularly in the planning of the development of the cities. Yeah, thank you.
I can't unmute myself. Oh yeah, now I'm looking. Kay, do you want to add a few words on this?
Yes, sorry to adjust my. Yes, thanks for the question. So I think for developing cities that may not necessarily currently have elevated levels of air pollution, it is important to note that one, the World Health Organization air quality guidelines, which essentially sets out the recommended levels for air pollutants that are within public health protection, actually notes that even at low levels, for example, of PM 2.5, there are still health effects that we feel even with exposure of very low levels of pollution. So there is merit to continue to work on air pollution, even if your city may be already clean at this stage. And we also want to, of course, as developing cities, the usual pattern is focusing on infrastructure, just development overall. But we know now from experience from many cities that incorporating sustainability within our development goals will bring not only just benefits for air quality and climate, but our overall economic growth will also be contributing to that effort. And then maybe one finally, the measures that provide benefits for both air quality and climate, for example, electric mobility, they not only just focus on those benefits. There are multiple benefits that could be provided as part of that. Could be focusing on saving fuel costs, energy security. So there are other elements that we could consider within an integrated approach, not just primarily focusing on air quality and climate. Thank you.
Thank you both, Karma and Kay. So as the moderator, I want to close the Q&A section, but I would want to pass the floor to Mr. Albert Magalan, the Chief of Climate Change Service of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources of the Philippines, to give his response to the panelists. The reason we asked Mr. Albert is also one of the issues we haven't talked today is the vertical integration. And I think Mr. Albert can give a good compliment here to the work we have been discussing just now. So maybe the floor to you, Mr. Albert, just a few minutes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Marlene, for giving me this opportunity to share with you another emerging initiative on how to scale up transformative action on short-lived climate pollutants from cities. So actually, this has something to do with the creation of an urban hub for climate and as introduced by the Climate and Clean Air Coalition, taking off from the Rolling Fund project by the CCAC on integrating SLCP reductions into policies and practices in cities in Asia. So this Rolling Fund project would have the primary objective of building government capacity to integrate short-lived climate pollutants into existing policies and plans with the aim of harnessing co-benefits to control air quality and climate change in Asia. So with the conclusion of the first phase of the Rolling Fund project, the three implementing organizations, I'm referring to IGS, ICLEI East Asia, and Cleaner Asia, are submitting a concept notes to outline how the lessons learned and materials generated from the Rolling Fund project could contribute to an urban hub for the CCAC under the Coalition 2030 strategy. And further, I'd like to also share this information with our colleagues that the creation of the CCAC Urban Hub with potentially the Philippines as a country partner and Cleaner Asia, IGES, and ICLEI serving as lead partners would not only be well aligned with the CCAC's 2033 key directions, but consistent with the CCAC vision for the hubs. So the CCAC Urban Hub would focus on three work streams. First is assessing and building essential capacities. Second, strengthening evidence-based policies and institutions. And lastly, mobilizing financing to implement solutions. So the Philippines would like to be engaged in further discussion on this new initiative together with our partners from IGS, ICLEI East Asia, and Cleaner Asia. But for just an initial information on this initiative, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share this. Thank you, Marlene. Thank you, colleagues. Good afternoon to all.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Albert, for closing this section for us. So can I already pass the floor to Dan and Eric for closing today's webinar section?
Thank you, Merlin. Before our summary, I would like to request our panelists to turn on your videos for a very quick group photo. Thank you, and colleagues from the organizer side, may I ask for help in also taking the photo, please? Okay, so ready? 1, 2, and 3. Do we have it? Okay. All right. So thank you. May I ask Eric to say a few, like a 2-line summary, and then we can close the webinar.
Hey, thank you very much for attending today's informative exchange. I think one of the beauties of co-benefits is it doesn't only bring together air pollution and climate change, but it brings together people. And I think we've had a clear indication of this collaboration amongst like-minded folks. And so I look forward to working in partnership with many of the individuals and organizations participating today, and sincere appreciations to everybody that attended and worked on this project. We look forward to carrying forward the results to make even bigger impacts and healthier climate and air quality in Asia. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. And from here, I would like to thank everyone on behalf of the organizing group. So thank you, sincerest thanks to our panelists and participants. And we apologize for the extension that we had this morning. And yes, we look forward to working and collaborating with you on GoBenefits. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone, for supporting us.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Be in
Thank
touch. Have a
you.
good day.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Hi, morning, Eric and Dang. Do you want to talk a bit? Or
Not here.
yeah.
Thank you, Tegu. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Now I need. I'm closing the meeting. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye.